What's going on, everybody? You know what time it is. It's your boy, Mr. Bell, aka Captain Hater. I did something different a couple weeks ago, and I decided to go ahead and put this out with a good friend of mine, a good guy I know, Wes the Barber. He got his podcast starting up. We wanted to touch on mental health, men's mental health especially for this episode. But look for more episodes with me and him coming soon. But yeah, it's we decided we was going live, and I was like, okay, we're gonna use this for a podcast. So if you hear a lot of him talking to the audience and stuff, because he was doing the live, because he got his own stuff that he's working on, and we're gonna support him or whatnot. But you already know what time it is. Hold up in another thing, presented by Mixed Vibes Media. You already know the vibes. One.
It did start in the barbershop. It was conversations between you and I about, mental health, of course, but also, Eminem is one of our great debates that we also
we ain't talking music tonight.
That's one of our great debates that we have very often. So the conversation of a podcast came about, and at the time I was just getting into podcasts and like listening to them and watching them or whatnot. So yeah, like it's fitting that we're doing this in the shop.
It is. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, we are live from the barbershop, conveniently located inside of my home for now. So
it works out.
Many years ago, when I still had Goodfellas Men's Barber and Styling Shop, me and Q had been friends for years at that point, and we had been having a lot of discussions and typical discussions that would get brought about in the barbershop that men would normally talk about amongst men. Things that guys don't normally talk to about their women about or female friends. And a lot of those discussions were about men's mental health and some of the stresses that men have that they feel like they can't talk about to a lot of people. And the barbershop was always a safe place to kind of have those discussions. And Q came to me one day and he said, listen, he said, I've been thinking about doing a podcast, and one of the things I want to focus on when we start this thing is men's mental health awareness. And I want to discuss this and figure out some of the stigmatisms as far as men's mental health is concerned, and bring that to the forefront and to make people a little bit more comfortable discussing some of these things, the stigmas surrounding men's mental health. And I've been talking to another friend of mine, Josh Craven. He might be watching here pretty soon, I'm not sure. And we had already been talking about doing a podcast, and life kind of happened and slowed that down. So then I got with Q, and Q brought in a friend of his, DQ, and we created Mixed Vibes Media together. And after we got that off of the ground, got it moving a little bit, we separated ways by my decision. Just some creative differences.
But what did you call it? You called it
creative differences. Okay. Creative differences. Yes.
What you calling it? Okay.
So there was just some things that I had seen that or not seen rather, but some different things that I was wanting to do creatively that you all didn't necessarily want to do yet. And so at that point in time, I just felt like before I ruined a friendship, because you're like a little brother to me. I didn't want that podcast or us being in a business together to get in the way of us being friends or family. So I felt like it was best for me to go ahead and just kind of part ways. And I've still supported and watched from a distance as far as what you and DQ are doing, and I'm proud of you guys. And I still love Mixed Vibes Media. I'm still proud of having a small hand in what you guys are doing over there, as far as the beginning stages of that and getting it off the ground. Getting that logo designed for us.
Yeah, you would bring up the logo. That's
shout out to Nomo.
It's great that you brought up the logo. We just gonna let that go.
You gonna let it go now? Oh, so you gonna tell me live?
Wait a minute. Now you said that you didn't want to go into that, but if we want to go into that, let's tell you.
You gonna go live to tell me that you gonna let the logo go?
As I told you multiple times, Q will talk. Especially once I press record and this microphone come on, I'm a different person. So the conversations is always. Well, no, I wouldn't say a different person. I'm always down to have conversations.
I'm not mad at you. That's your all's baby now at this point. So what y'all do with it is up to you. The logo's lasted as long as it has. I'm proud of that. But you guys are growing. You all are doing some really cool things, man. Y'all got multiple shows now. If anybody's interested, that's watching on live right now. So Mixed Vibes Media has multiple podcasts, multiple shows under the umbrella of Mixed Vibes Media. So tonight's show will be featured on Q's personal show called Hold Up and Another Thing.
I was going to say, you going to introduce my pie, you going to let me introduce my pie.
Let the people know. Let the people know.
My pie is called Hold, like you said. Hold Up and Another Thing. Like I'm just repeating after you. But nah, like you said, it's my personal pie. I really talk about relationships and friendships and current events on this pie. So like the conversation of men's mental health, like I've had with a friend of ours, John. Me and him did a pie talking about men's mental health. This is the place for that conversation.
Absolutely. It's so I'm glad you said it. So what? Let's let the people know what brought us to the decision to go ahead. We've been talking about doing some new shows. You know that I'm working on my old podcast right now. So let me go ahead and shout that out. My podcast is going to be coming soon to YouTube and basically anywhere that podcasts are available. The name of it is going to be called From Behind the Chair. What we're going to be doing is focusing on the discussions from everything from sports, current events, to men's mental health is a huge thing to me right now. All the discussions that I have with my clients in the barbershop. So that's why we call it From Behind the Chair, because it's my view of the way that I see things when I'm behind the chair cutting hair.
So what can they expect from this podcast?
What can they expect from the podcast?
Like as far as guests or...
well, what we're focusing on right now, we actually want to start doing a live show.
Okay.
First, and what we're going to do, we're going to start doing a live show as I'm cutting hair, and the guests are going to be real people. So you can look at there's been a couple shows now that you can find on YouTube with celebrities sitting in the barbershop having conversations. Mav Hoffa. I'm sure if y'all don't know Mav Hoffa, but huge battle rapper, champion battle rapper, good dude. Has a lot to talk about, but he always brings celebrity guests on. You got LeBron James and them. They're doing those from the shop. With Showtime or HBO or whatever.
Actually, I think now they on YouTube.
They might be exclusively on YouTube now, but they're bringing celebrities on to talk about things from their points of view. I want people, the regular everyday people, to have a voice and to be able to come on and discuss these everyday issues that we have as everyday regular human beings. I want them to have a platform as well. So, shout out, no hating on what Math and them do, no hating on what LeBron and all them guys are doing, but I want the world to be able to get a regular Joe's point of view.
You got something different, man. You, like you said, you want to create a show that encaptures real life conversations that go on in the shop with people that ain't millionaires.
Absolutely. The problems that we have,
it's not the problems.
The problems that we have as individual, regular, everyday human beings are going to be different from somebody that makes $50 million a year shooting a basketball or doing battle rap or stand up comedy or any of that. Sure. You know what I'm saying? That's just the inevitable. Like I said, no hating on what those guys do, because I think they do have important conversations. But can I sit back and relate to the problems that they're talking about? Absolutely not.
No.
You know what I'm saying? But I just can't do it.
But your podcast is going to give people the space to where they can actually relate to these conversations.
Bikeman. Good friend of mine from work, very good guy, who might have some insight as to what we're speaking to tonight. Obviously all the people that's going to be tuning in work EMS with me, and has spent many years in that field, can understand how important men's mental health awareness is from a different standpoint.
I was going to say, I wanted to ask you this while me and you was talking off pod before we got started. We was having a discussion about, like we said, mental health in the EMS and compared to mental health in the Army or the Navy or whatnot.
So mental health is what I've seen. And what up, Zach? How you doing, brother? Hope you're having a good night. Also, happy Good Friday to everybody. Hopefully everybody's having a good, safe weekend. But so what Quentin's asking me about is a discussion we were having before we went before we went live, before the podcast started. We were talking about PTSD and the difference of PTSD and the first responder field is related to PTSD in a military standpoint. So I think over the last handful of years, PTSD, veteran suicide, the 22 a day movement has been brought to the forefront a lot more, as it should be, because I mean, veterans have had the stigma that PTSD, and talking about some of the things they've seen in the time of war, was last 20 plus years now. I mean, most of our adult life, our country's been at war, and we've had a lot of friends that's been over there. At least I do. I've had a lot of friends that are veterans that have seen things that I couldn't imagine, and done things that I couldn't imagine. And
but I can say that about the field you in, because I couldn't imagine seeing the things that you see.
And that's the bridge. That's where we kind of bridge the gap a little bit. So when we talk about the PTSD in the military field, it's become the awareness that surrounds it has been accepted a little bit more. It's people have tried to let our veterans know that if you're feeling a certain type of way, it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to open up about it. It's okay to seek help. Right. Now, in the EMS field, it's a little bit different, because me personally, I do believe that PTSD and EMS and not just in EMS, but first responders as well. So, firefighters and police officers, those people that are first on scene, and some of the things they see, it's doesn't have the awareness that it should. But I think part of that is because there are people that are afraid to talk about it, because they don't want that stigma of them being viewed as 1 week, kind of the same as the military. The reason a lot of people didn't talk about this in the military years ago, they didn't want to be viewed as weak. People would tell them to suck it up. It's part of the job. It's what you signed up for. These types of things. But in EMS, I have seen people overplay it. I've seen people, Kev, what up, bruh? How you doing? Hope y'all having a good weekend. Tell mama I said what's up. So people I've seen people in EMS that are on what we call convalescent runs, right? Which is basically like dialysis runs, or hospital to hospital, nursing home to nursing home. And they've been in the field for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and they say they got PTSD, and they've never made an emergency call. And then people start to question, well, what do you mean? Like, what have you seen that's so bad that gives you PTSD? And that kind of gives the people a bad stigma for the people that's been in the field for an extended period of time, that have seen some tragic things.
But let me ask you this, though, before we go too far. Is it fair to, I don't want to discredit what those people have seen, because everybody's mental makeup is different.
Absolutely. That's something we're going to touch on here in a little bit. Or something I would like to touch on here in a little bit. So, if y'all can't hear Q, I apologize. He's on another microphone on the other side of the room, or across the room from me. But he asked me if that's fair to discredit people that's been in the field for a short period of time, because everybody's mental makeup is different. I think to an extent you shouldn't downplay it when somebody has something that's bothering them. Everybody should have an outlet. Everybody should be able to have somebody to talk to without being discredited, whether it's in EMS or just in life in general. But in EMS, there is a stigma of people that have been in the field for a very short period of time and don't necessarily have that experience, or haven't made those types of runs that do affect some of us. They don't have, how do I put it? With them not having that experience or that experience, I know you are, Kev, but you've seen a lot of things in real life, bro. You're my family. I know some of the things that you've seen in life, and some of the trauma that you've experienced, and having PTSD from that is nothing to be ashamed of. The fact, and I'm sorry to go off topic, but we got a comment from a family member of mine. He's like my big brother, Kevin Harris, that said he's managing his PTSD now. That kind of shoots us right into kind of one of the topics of tonight. That, Kev, the fact that you have recognized that you have PTSD from past trauma and things that you've seen in life, that's a huge step and that's something to be proud of. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that will suppress that trauma and that PTSD, and they'll deflect and they'll suppress it for such a long time that it builds up, causing more and more mental health issues as time goes on, because they have this PTSD and this trauma that they've let go unaddressed for so long. So, Nina, what up, sis? I love you. Thank you for tuning in. So the fact that you have recognized that you have things that need to be addressed and managed before you let it get too far out of hand, that shows a lot of strength and a lot of character, and I'm proud of you for that. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing that experience with us. So, anyways, Q, back to what you were speaking about. Refresh me a little bit. So we were talking about in the medical field, rather, the PTSD and the difference between that and
well, not necessarily the difference, but like we talked about a person that's been on the job a short amount of time compared to a person that's been on the job, for like you've been on it for years, have done it for a while. But let me ask you, do you think that it should be maybe mandatory for you all to seek, counseling or therapy, because you see a lot of things?
Yes.
So why do you think that should be done?
I think I've seen close friends of mine. I don't want to mention any names. Just to keep their things private. But I do know some people in the field that have experienced some things in life that they've let it get too far. They've let it take a toll on their mental health, and I think that things could have been different for them had they had somebody to talk to them about those things. I don't think that it's necessary that we should have to go out and seek. So in EMS, we have what we call CISM, or Critical Incident Stress Management.
Okay.
And some departments have chaplains, they have counselors, things of that nature, where if you're feeling a certain way, you can go talk to those people. But I think that it would benefit first responders a little bit more if they had somebody that, instead of waiting for you to come to them, they would pull you in every so often, whether it's every month, whether it's once, every couple months, just to pull you into their office and to say, hey, how are you doing? And to do some sort of an evaluation, just to talk to you, to remind you, hey, if you've seen something in the last few months that's bothering you, this is a safe place. You can come talk to me about it. It's confidential. It's between me and you. You don't have to go anywhere else. You don't have to keep it bottled up. It's okay. That's the biggest thing. In mental health, we have to remind people it's okay to hurt. It's okay to open up about things.
It's okay to feel. I think a lot of people miss it.
It's okay to feel. Absolutely.
It's important. Actually, it's important to feel. You don't want to go through life being a robot.
Absolutely. And that's the... So men... So Q said we don't want to go through life being a robot. That leads me into a huge reason, or a huge topic rather, for the podcast tonight and the live. And the reason I'm doing for everybody watching, the reason I'm doing the live video while we're recording the podcast, there will be an edited version of this, condensed down, that'll be on every streaming platform you can think of for a podcast, and I'll make sure that Q shouts all them out at the end of the show. But I wanted to be interactive. I wanted people to be able to tune in and voice their opinions through our Facebook Live, as well as me and Q have our normal discussion on the podcast like we normally would. I wanted to bring in some, as many people from the outside as we could to voice their opinions, post any questions, make any comments or statements. So if you all want to jump in and ask any questions or share any opinions, feel free. I would love for you all to do that. That's the purpose of going live while we're doing this thing. But ask me that question again, Q.
Now, I have done things in my life that make me forgetful. But I actually didn't ask a question. I talked about us making sure that it's okay to feel, about us making sure that we're not robots and we're just living a life.
Yeah, not robots, that we're not just living
that
life.
Emotions is comfortable. You got to be comfortable with your emotions.
So one of the biggest things that I've been an advocate for lately, especially in my life, one of the big things that I've been trying to stress is that there is a difference between living and existing. So those that deal with mental health issues, we get wrapped up, and I say we because I am one of them. I've dealt with a lot of things over the years that and demons that I've had to confront over the last couple of years, and that's why this is such a passionate topic for me. But we get wrapped up in living everyday life, just trying to get from one day to the next. If I can make it through today, maybe tomorrow will be better. Then you wake up, you go to work, and you're just kind of stuck in that same routine, and you're not doing anything for yourself. You're not going out and living life. You're just existing. You're stuck in that everyday, day-to-day routine. And we become okay with that for a long time, and we just get caught up in that. And then there's going to be a point in time where you realize, man, it's not a month that went by. It's not a couple months that went by. Years have went by.
So it's been years, and you searching for more.
And I'm searching for more.
You missing, and you feel like you missing out on something.
You realize, so man, right before COVID hit in 2019, September 2019, one of my closest friends, he's like a brother, second father to me, Chuck Dismang. He owns the gym that I train at and help teach at now. Him and his wife, Vanessa, one of the sweetest people you could ever know. They took me down to Florida with them, and we had planned this trip for 6+ months. And I was kind of battling some things at the time. Again, I started looking for reasons not to go. And about a week, and I told him, I said, yeah, I'm not going to make it. You know, finances aren't necessarily where I need them. I can't take a week off work right now. And about a week before he went, he said, no. He said, man, we're not taking excuses. You've never seen the ocean. You've never been to the beach. You've been a part of this plan the whole time. You're going. Do whatever you got to do to make it work.
Wait a minute. That was your first time seeing
the ocean?
That
was my first time seeing the ocean. I was 34 years old. And it was my first time ever going to see. It was my first time really outside of Indiana or Kentucky. And
I want to say real quick. I talked to my friend Clyde, who live up in Nap now. We talk about that all the time about people never venturing out their cities or their states. It's important to travel. But go ahead. I just wanted to make sure I shout that out.
No, that's awesome. But so when I took this trip and I stepped outside of my comfort zone, and when we got to Florida, man, we're down in Panama City Beach, Florida, and we pull up to the hotel, and we've been on the road for 10, 12 hours, something like that, and we pull up to the hotel, and I get out, and I hear the ocean, and I smell it, and this heat hits me. It's a different kind of heat. It's a different kind of experience down there. And I know all I got to do is walk to the side. I walk between these two hotels, and I swear to you, I was standing on the edge of the earth, man. Like you see this water and you see the sand, this beautiful beach, and it opened my eyes up. That week opened my eyes up so much to how long I've been existing and not living. Mm-hmm. You know, the world is meant for us to experience, man.
We miss out on so much by worrying about, like you said, finances or you know, other things that's go on in life. We end up missing out on so much because we let those worries overtake us.
So one of my favorite artists, one of my favorite hip hop artists, anyways, is Kevin Gates. You know this. We've talked about this before, and one of the reasons I love Gates is because Gates talks about a lot of real shit, and there's people that will sit there and say, and pardon my language, Facebook, but there's a lot of there's people. Gates talks about some weird stuff, blah blah blah. One of my favorite quotes from Kevin Gates from years ago is, everything lost can be found again except for time wasted. Let me say that again. Everything lost can be found again except for time wasted. Now, I've had this epiphany lately that I kind of disagree with people that say you only get one life. Well, as a lifetime, we only get one life. But every day that we wake up, we get a chance to live.
We get a new beginning.
Every day is a new beginning. And when we look at that, and you really think about that and you analyze that, man, that's deep.
It is.
That's deep.
It is.
So when we talk about the past, let it go. Yesterday was yesterday. We can try to do that. Now, when we circle back around to men's mental health, that's hard. Sometimes we need help. We need to figure out how to cope with yesterday before we can actually let it go.
True. But one thing about, if you continue to hold on, that's why you say we need help. If you continue to hold on to the past, you're going to waste more time going in the future.
Thank you, Seth.
You wasting time going on in the future. The one thing, my biggest lesson I try to teach my son is, don't waste time because you don't get time back.
Ooh, you don't.
But we got to have mental health conversations, and people got to go out and get the help, because if you don't fix the past, you're gonna be stuck in your future, and you're just sitting there wasting time, and you just basically the grinds behind the clock face. They just turn it, but you ain't going nowhere.
If you want to live today to your fullest ability, if you want to wake up in the morning and you want to seize the day and you want to live the best today that you can, you have to address anything in the past that's still bothering you.
Most definitely.
And that's the only way we're going to have a better tomorrow as well.
You can't, you know what they always say, people that study history is, if you can't know your future if you don't know your past, if you don't know your history. So you're going to end up repeating a lot of the same things, or go through some things that you could have prevented if you had dealt with your history.
Absolutely.
So, in the conversation of men's mental health.
Hang on 1 second. So I want to address a comment that one of my oldest friends in the world, Charlie Bell, just commented. He said, not being in the military or first responder, it is hard to find help with mental health. So, Charlie, I know it's hard to find help. There are resources out there. I will try after this video is done. Donnie, what's going on, brother? I hope you're doing good. It's been a long time since I've seen you, man, but I appreciate you tuning in and watching. I hope life's treating you good, man. Donnie's a good friend of mine. I met him years ago when I was going through my second EMT class to get my numbers reinstated, probably around beginning of 2018. And Donnie's a real good guy, man. I mean, solid people. But Charlie, back on what you're saying, there's resources out there. I have found here recently, through my own experience, it's actually harder for first responders and military to find counseling for PTSD. So the waiting list for counselors and therapists that specialize in PTSD, the waiting list is 3 to 6 months just to get in for an initial appointment. So there are places out here locally that you can get in to see therapists, but some of it is a group setting. So I would encourage you that if you need some counseling or group or therapy in general, that if group is the only option that you have right now, take part in that and try and at least see if that works for you. If not, man, reach out to me, reach out to somebody, because I'm always here. Find a friend that you feel that you can trust and confide in, and talk to them about what you're going through. And that'll lead me into another thing that me and Quentin, I know we're trying to stay on topic a little bit and touch on a lot of subjects at once. But one of the things that me and Quentin were talking about before we actually started the show was having people there that you can confide in, and but also the difference in venting to someone and going to someone for advice. So I'm going to use this as a segue, basically, to tell anybody that's watching it, if you're not dealing with mental health issues with yourself, but you do know somebody that is, if somebody comes to you with an issue or they're feeling a certain type of way, they're dealing or battling some mental health issues or stress, make sure that you ask them if they're looking for advice, or if they're listening, or if they're looking for someone to listen to them. Because there's a big difference. There's a huge difference in wanting to talk to somebody and wanting somebody to talk to you. Sometimes people just need someone to listen. we don't want advice from somebody that doesn't have experience in what we're dealing with. And even if so, say Quentin, me and you, say if we go through the same thing, and you made the comment earlier that all of us are made up differently mentally.
Yep.
So me and you can go through the same thing. We could go through the exact same situation, but you're a different person than me. So the way that you process that situation mentally is going to be different than the way that I process it.
Because our mental makeups is different. What we went through in life is different.
Anytime, Charlie. I got you, brother.
So yeah, like every so that changes for each person. I always tell people the one thing you should do is learn who you could vent to and learn who you get advice from.
But see, I don't want this show to only focus on people that are battling mental health. I want people that know someone that's battling mental health to learn better ways to assist them.
Okay, that's true.
That's so. If you all look at my post from earlier, it said we were going to be going live at 9:00, and I stated that this wasn't something that we were going to focus on men's mental health, but I want everybody to be able to take something away from this. That includes women too. So men are so afraid to share their struggles because we don't want to be we don't want to demasculinate ourselves. And I apologize. I have a hard time saying that word, demasculinate. But we don't want anybody to view us as weak. So as men, and this has been something I've been talking a lot about recently, is as men, we don't want to be deemed as weak. We take pride in being strong characters, and that's as a role model for our children, as someone our spouse or girlfriend or wife can go to, our family members can go to. We don't ever want to be viewed as weak. And we think that if we go to somebody in our family, or we go to our wife or our girlfriend and talk to them about certain things that are bothering us mentally, that we're going to be viewed as weak. Because as men, there's two things that we have to be before anything, as a parent and as a loved one, as a father and as a spouse, boyfriend, husband, whatever. Men have the desire and the need, not just the desire, but the need to feel like they are a protector and a provider. I call it the 2 P's. We have to be protectors, we have to be providers. And me and my sister Nina were just talking about this a few days ago. And she's the first person that I've talked to about this, that before I could even get those 2 words out, she said it before I could. Protector and provider. Yeah. And I can't stress that enough. So as protectors and providers, we feel that like we have to be strong all the time. So what we do is we start taking the things that we go through, we place everybody else's problems before our own. Yeah. We suppress what we're going through, and we take it out in other ways. Yeah. And we take it out in unhealthy ways. I was going to say,
which we got to make sure that it's clear that that's not healthy.
No.
And that's not what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely not.
But let me ask though, with men doing these things and we not wanting to open up, just gonna do that in the back of my podcast.
On the back of the podcast,
in my podcast. Listen, well, it's obvious okay. You just gotta.
I keep forgetting that we're. You can edit that out later. You got the editing.
Go back to the 1990s with the pats out here. Like, look, it's a new age. Look, we're not gonna do that. But it's important. I want to say it's important for guys to talk to other guys that have that friendship, so you can relate to what I'm going through, just in the sense of being a protector and being a provider, or being fathers. I always I bring up John. When it comes to mental health, I bring up John a lot because I can have these conversations with John.
Absolutely, John's one of the first people I can go talk to anytime I've got an issue.
He gets on my last fucking nerves, but the person that I can have these conversations with is John. He don't listen for shit, but this pod ain't about him,
right?
Because I could go on a whole pod about him.
See, John would be the first to give you advice, but the last to take your advice.
He'll
admit that you're right when you do it. That's the worst part about John.
He would give you advice about your situation that he could work for him.
Donnie, what's up, brother? I'm a pretty man. You got it. Goddamn right. Boy, 37 looks good on me, don't it?
Same about you. Doing a podcast. Same about you.
We are doing a podcast. We also doing Facebook Live. So, somebody pays me a compliment, I gotta acknowledge that.
No, you don't. You don't. Because I don't see it. But no, that's neither here nor there. But
that's because you ain't even hosting us right now. Look, y'all. Q said my phone on 12%. I can't host a podcast live on Facebook right now. That's what he said.
Yeah, I wanted people to come hear you. So this is what we doing.
Yeah.
But
so let's get back on topic though.
So. Yeah. Like I said, I feel like it's important for guys to talk to guys.
Absolutely.
Because you can relate. Maybe you can't relate to exactly my situation, but you can relate to being, like you said, the 2Ps. But why are men afraid to talk to other guys?
Well, I think men are afraid to talk to other guys
because women do it.
So say if me and you were friends, but you've never opened up to me about any type of struggles or anything that you feel as a man, any of the stresses or the worries that you have as a man. I'm not going to feel comfortable coming to talk to you about that because I'm say, damn, he handles life so much easier than I do. Mm-hmm. I don't want him to think any less of me. Yeah, but I don't want him to think that I'm not man enough to handle my trouble.
That person's struggling the whole time. You don't know it.
Exactly.
So why can't we just have that conversation? Because I'm sure me and you done had the conversation of, well, if you need me, I'm here.
Absolutely.
But how often do we reach out to each other? I won't say we don't. But how often do we reach out to each other like we probably should?
Not enough. Absolutely not enough. That's as men, and I think that's one of the things of while we're not just talking about men's mental health, we're talking about men's mental health awareness. Yeah. Because guys have to know that other guys are struggling with some of the same things that they are. And until I'm sorry, Donnie says, give him some E&J, he'll tell me anything, bro. Hey, bro, I'm not 20 anymore. We don't do the E&J anymore, bro. It's normally bourbon, but tonight it's a cognac night.
We still do E&J.
You younger than me, though, so.
Not by that much. We still do E&J.
But, so, as men, I think it's part of our duty to make sure that we know that our friends can come to us when they're feeling a certain type of way, when they're dealing with some mental health, or they're dealing with stress of everyday life, if they're dealing with stress with being a parent, if they're dealing with stress with relationship issues, we have to make sure that our friends know they can come and talk to us. And we're not going to judge them for what they're going through. Even if we can't relate to what they're going through, we have to make sure that they know we're not going to judge them. So the barbershop, and I've been cutting hair for 11 plus years now. I ran my own shop for 10 years. And for all that time, most people knew that in the barbershop, that was a judgment-free zone. Taylor, I know you will, sis, and I appreciate you. You are definitely one of the good ones. You're a good friend. You're a good-hearted person. A friend of mine from work, and I've known her family for a long time. She said, I'm not a man, but I listen to what you have to say, buddy. And that goes to lead into, so I say as men, we need to make sure that our friends, that our close ones, our other guy friends need to know that they can come talk to us without judgment. Right. That leads into the fact that I feel like what I advertised earlier. What's up, Max? How you doing, brother? That leads into the fact of where I feel like everybody can benefit from our show tonight, because I want women to understand that their men need reassurance, or their spouse needs reassurance that they can come to them and talk to them and not be judged, and that they're not going to think any less of them as a man, that they're still going to view them as the 2 Ps, right? Protectors and providers. But we all have moments of weakness. We all have moments of weakness. It doesn't matter. Listen, you point out the hardest fucking person on the face of this earth. I don't care who it is. You go to death row and point out a fucking serial killer, and I guarantee there's a moment in his life where he's felt weak and he's cried about something. Whether it's a fucking female, whether it's the loss of a loved one, I guarantee everybody has emotions. It's how we deal with it, and if we deal with it in a proper manner, if we deal with it in a healthy manner.
Some people try to cut them off, and that's when it becomes unhealthy, or they do things that they shouldn't do, physical harm to other people or physical harm to themselves or whatnot.
real quick, I got a friend of mine, Max, that's watching live. He's a great friend of mine. Me and him have some conversations about men's mental health awareness over the years as well. Me and Max, we've known each other 25 plus years at least. But I do want to give you a shout out real quick. I know that y'all recently got to bring that baby home. I hope the kiddo's doing well, and I hope you and the wife are doing well. Also, man, I just want to say congratulations real quick on the new baby, man, and hopefully everything's going good. So, anyways, Q. Yes, you can edit that out later. All right.
You're throwing me off. Where was I going? Oh, okay. I wanted to talk about, you said the men being able to open up to their woman and the woman being there to support the man. What happens when the man don't want to open up?
What happens when the man doesn't want to open up?
How can a woman support this man if he don't want to talk?
That puts a woman in a hard spot.
You got to give the woman the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make sure that, so it's like you said, it's about men's mental health and awareness about mental health. But with awareness comes strategy.
Absolutely, Max.
Vulnerability. So how can that, if you can't open up to your woman, how can you tell that that's your woman?
Well, like I said, the first thing is your woman has to reassure you that even with her, you can open up to her without her thinking any less of you as a man, right? And I say, as a man, because one of the most toxic things for a man is for his woman to take things that he's opened up to her about and shown. One of the hardest things for us to do as men is to be vulnerable to the person that we love and that we're in a relationship with.
Then we hate for it to come back in our face.
Because it'll be thrown back in our face. So the woman has to show that man that as much as he supports her, as much strength that he shows to try and support her and be there for her, in his time of need, she has to reassure him, I'm going to be here for you. And these aren't things that are going to be used against you. I'm a safe place.
My counter argument to that would be, is if you're not sure if you can open up to your woman, that shouldn't be your woman.
Oh, absolutely. If you can't open up to her
in the first instance of her throwing it back up in your face, that's another sign of that shouldn't be your woman.
Absolutely not. So Q says, if y'all can't hear on the live, Q says that if a woman ever throws that back in your face, or if you feel like you can't open up to that woman, it shouldn't be your woman. And I believe him. He's absolutely right. It's a great point. So I don't talk about music very much when we talk about things like this, but remember that throwback Alicia Keys song, Diary?
Oh yeah.
So
I listen to that song
man,
once a month.
I will tell you this, ladies. Any females that's listening or on the podcast, any ladies that's watching on the live right now, play that song for your man and reassure them that you're a safe place for them to come talk to about anything, any worry that they have, and that you're not going to judge them.
That's an incredible song.
If you want to lock that man down, I promise you, that's going to do it.
That's definitely an incredible song.
It's an incredible song.
Like, Alicia Keys makes a lot of great music. Because you know me, I'm R&B head. But that song, like I said, I listen to that song probably once a month, if not more.
So I was telling a friend of mine not too long ago, we were sharing some music with each other, and I told her, I said, I'm a true believer as an artist and as a writer. I'm a true believer that there is a song for every moment, and if there's not, there should be. But there is. It doesn't have to be rap. Doesn't have to be rock. It can be R&B. It can be country. It can be classical music. It can be a throwback to the 60s, 50s, 60s. It doesn't matter. There is a song for every moment, every situation. Right?
Might be hard to find, but if you do a little research, do a little digging, you could definitely find a song.
Absolutely.
For every single situation. You know me, I ain't even the biggest rock.
Lauren, what's up, dear?
Person, but I found
How are you?
songs.
I haven't talked to you in a while. We need to hang out soon. But hey, listen, we still got to get the. I've got people texting me at the same time. My landlord just texted me, said quit smoking in the house. So, hey, windows open. I'm gonna fumigate afterwards, but we couldn't record outside. So what's Q? What's some of the other things that we talked about that we wanted to touch on tonight? I know we're running along in time, but you know it's such a deep conversation. It's such a huge topic that there's so many different directions that we can go with it. You had brought up a quote that I sent to you a while back, and it was actually a quote that I made and a topic that I wanted to talk about. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. Separating yourself from toxic people and negative energy is great, but seclusion can become toxic too. Why did you feel that way?
So
it's true, but why did you feel that way?
So if y'all couldn't hear him, says separating yourself from toxic people can be great, but self-seclusion in itself can be toxic as well. And the reason I say that is because if you struggle with mental health, it is a great thing to get yourself away from people that pose negative energy or bring negative energy around you, or that don't contribute to your positive mental health, your a positive mind state. So get away from them. But if you're struggling with mental health and you cut all these people off and then you seclude yourself, one of the worst things we do is we put ourselves in a situation where we're not around anybody, and then we're stuck with our own thoughts all day long. And one of the worst places to be if you struggle with mental health is by yourself alone with your own thoughts. That can be a very toxic place for you to be.
I was going to say one of the most dangerous places to be is to be in your own head.
One of the dangerous places to be is in your own head. Absolutely. I'm a huge advocate for that. And that's why we kind of circle back around to say that, you have to find somebody somewhere to talk to about what you're going through. So a big thing that we do sometimes is we find other people to help or other things to do to distract ourselves from our own issues. Mm-hmm. And a distraction is not a solution. You can write that down. A distraction is not a solution, guys. It's not.
It's not a solution, but I do want to say a distraction can be a benefit.
A distraction can be a benefit for only so long, though.
Yeah, but when you in your own head, something that can distract you from something that can get you out of your own thoughts.
Something to get you out of your own thoughts, it can be beneficial. But at the end of the day, we have to figure out a way to circle back around.
You got to take care of the issue.
And address that issue, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Because when we leave these things untreated, all it's going to do is cause more negative energy in the long run. What we do in soaking and change the scenery, absolutely, sis, absolutely. My sister Nina says soaking and change the scenery. A change of scenery can absolutely be beneficial if you've dealt with enough toxicity in the area that you're at. Maybe it's good to move somewhere and find a new start.
If you're from Louisville, that's the guy on the radio. I can't think of his name. He always
if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. Right.
That's very important.
So what we were saying just before that, what we tend to do is we'll suppress all those things that we're feeling and distract ourselves. And that distraction is okay for the short period of time, right? If you're feeling that negative that, you're considering suicide or things of that nature. You're talking about the worst of the worst situation, and you've got to find something to distract yourself. That's great. You need to be able to find a distraction. But that doesn't cure your trauma. That doesn't treat that trauma. Eventually, at some point, you're going to have to circle back around and face that. You're going to have to face those demons. And you're going to have to find a way to confront them and find a way to start healing. So what we're doing is we're putting a Band-Aid on an open wound that's not going to heal until we go see the proper people to treat that. Sure. So, So to segue from that into the next step, bear with me, guys, because there's so much to process with this, but we're leaving things untreated. We're finding a distraction. We're leaving them. We're suppressing them, and it goes back to Nina, and you can vouch for this. So I used this analogy a while back, or a few days ago when we were having a conversation. So what men and even myself have tended to do in situations like that, where we find these distractions, what we're doing is we're taking take a 50-gallon whiskey barrel. Imagine taking a 50-gallon whiskey barrel. Okay, and your problems are the size of a toothpick. All right, just the everyday little problems you have the size of a toothpick. We start throwing them in it's a barrel. That barrel ain't gonna fill up too fast, right?
Right.
But eventually, these problems that we have, these toothpicks, and every now and then you have a little bit of a bigger problem, so we're gonna start throwing some sticks in there. Then you have a major problem, we're gonna throw a couple logs into it. Yeah. You know, that barrel starts to build up, and eventually that barrel is gonna start overflowing, and that barrel. And these toothpicks and these sticks and these logs are all problems that you've left unresolved because you've distracted yourself and you suppressed this. And now you've let this barrel overflow. And you say, well, I've got to start addressing these problems. You finally come to that realization, I've got to fix this. I've got to start addressing these problems. I've got to resolve this trauma, whether it's, I'm not there for my kid enough. I'm not there for my old lady enough. Or I'm single and I hate it. I'm tired of going home by myself. Whatever these problems are, you have to go back and address it. And then we get to this point to where it's like, okay, now I've got all these problems that's gone unaddressed, and I don't know where to start because I've got a barrel full of 1,000 problems, and I don't know which one to address first. And that makes it that much more harder for us to figure out a way to start to even begin to try to cope with all these issues that we've suppressed.
I was going to say, speaking of suppressing, we talk about, you brought up recent
now
problems.
We're preaching.
You talk about recent problems, but you got to think, people got childhood traumas. People go through things as younger. So that barrel, as it were, we throwing, like you said, using your analogy, throwing toothpicks in it and sticks in it and logs in it. But it had already, let's speak for me and you, we're in our 30s now. That barrel, I had some logs in it before we got to, adulthood.
Absolutely.
So now we got to learn how to, not only do we got to deal with the traumas of now and the problems of now, we got to deal with our childhood traumas and the things that we went through.
You got to learn to address that. It's hard, especially when you talk about childhood trauma. Childhood trauma is something that we suppress and we forget about as we get distracted, as we get a little bit older.
True.
But I promise you, and I say we suppress it to the point to where we almost forget about it until you get to a point where you've had so many other things happen to you as an adult, and you start to look back as to why am I going through this? Why am I going through that? Why do I feel this way? Why am I afraid to commit?
You ain't the problem.
So me, why am I afraid to commit to a relationship? Well, it's because my mom left me at fucking 2 years old. Well, gosh damn, how the fuck do I? So now I realize I've got a problem, but I don't know where to begin to address it because I've had it suppressed for so long. And it's something that I've never talked to anybody else about.
Yeah.
I didn't meet my mom really until I was 9 years old. Right? So who can I talk to in this world about that understands other than my brother? But then that leads back to the same thing. So for me personally, and what I found, and guys, bear with me, I'm going to get personal for a minute. And this isn't something that I normally talk about to just anybody, but I'm going to do it on the podcast and I'm going to do it on Facebook Live. So I feel like my brother handles things in relationships a lot differently than me. My brother handles things, and so me, I used to find myself when I fell in love, man, I wore my heart on my sleeve, and I was so afraid to lose, and a lot of that led back a lot of that channels back to growing up kind of without a mom, and I think that's childhood trauma playing its role in my adult life. is to where my brother was so afraid to even get close to women for a long time. And so he would be afraid to get close to somebody. So if he opened up to you, that was, that was something. You were a special person. As far as me, once I opened up to you, I would be so afraid to lose that. It was just kind of the polar opposite of my brother. It's kind of hard to explain, but that goes back to dealing with childhood trauma and some of the things that we experience. Now, we suppress those things for so long that we realize as an adult we're making mistakes. Well, why are we making these mistakes? Why are we doing things the way that we do? And then finally, myself, I had an epiphany, and I realized once I started to address some of the trauma that I've had and some of the things that I've been through as a kid, it started to make sense to me. Now, to me, it shows a level of maturity to finally admit that there's things that happened 20, 25, 30 years ago that still affect me in a negative manner today because I never addressed it in a proper manner. Now that's deep. I think, and I've showed this on Facebook within probably the last week, it takes more strength to ask for help or to seek help than it does to suppress your issues. And I will stand by that statement until the day I take my last breath. It's easy to hide from your problems. It's a lot harder to face a demon head on and say, you know what? Not today. Not today. You ain't gonna get the best of me today. I'm gonna find out. We have to figure out as men. We have to figure out. We have to figure out how to identify the problems that we've experienced in our life and how those are affecting us today. Then we have to seek treatment for it. Whether it's something that we do personally, whether you seek professional help, counseling, therapy, psychology, medication. There's options out there for all of us. And it's finding out what's right for you. But the first step is identifying that there is a problem. And identifying that you can't do everything on your own. And as men, that's one of the biggest problems that we have, because we feel like it is our job to carry the burdens of the world and the weight of the world on our shoulders and never fall. Never stumble. But we can't. Everybody has a moment of weakness. Everybody has a moment of weakness.
And that, like I was already saying, that takes us back to basically where we started this pod, where everybody's got to have feelings. Everybody's got to have weakness. And it's important to embrace it.
Yep.
Don't run away from it. I don't basically run towards it. Don't run away from it. Because if you run away from it, you're never going to be able to deal with it. You're never going to be able to, you're not going to be able to move forward. And my cousin was preaching to me today about moving forward. Okay, what's your next goal? Okay, what's the goal after that? So you always got to be able to move forward. If you still holding on to past traumas or holding on to things, you can't move forward because it's dragging you down. It's weighing you down.
Thank you, Mama D.
But I was going to say, man, this was a great conversation that we had. Sorry that I left you on the island there for a minute.
I was on a roll, so it don't matter. This is a topic, guys, that we can talk about, and I'm sure we will come back and talk about some more. I think this should be the first installment of a series of conversations and podcasts that we do, whether it's on my podcast or whether we continue to do some of these on Mixed Vibes Media and Hold Up and another thing.
Sure.
But these are important conversations, guys, that we have, and like I said, these are important conversations for men to have, but for women to also be involved in and at least have the opportunity to listen in on, so that they can see how they can help their men who might be struggling with mental health.
Not even just listen in. If we could have some women come in also and speak on the pod as well.
That'd be outstanding.
To share their experiences about dealing with a man or that has the mental health.
That would be outstanding. I would absolutely love that. I've enjoyed doing this live. I know that for content for Facebook Live, it's great. I know it makes it a little bit harder on you to edit everything on the podcast end, but
it does a little bit.
To absolutely says, how can we help each other? And that's, listen, not to keep everything going too long, because I know we got to keep the podcast itself to a somewhat of a time limit. But Nina says we need to know how we can help each other.
That's true.
And that's what we were talking about just a little bit ago, is that women, if your man is struggling with mental health, even if they're not, even if you don't see the signs. What up, Chris? Even if you don't see the signs, make sure and that you reassure your man that just in case he's going through some things, make sure that he knows that he can come talk to you and that you're not going to think any less of him. You got to make sure that your man, that your man knows that you know that he's a strong person. Recognize the fact that he does carry the weight of the world on his shoulders sometimes, and that you appreciate that. But make sure that he knows that in his moments of weakness, he can still come to you, and that you're not going to think any less of him. Make sure that he knows that he's a provider. Make sure that you know that he feels, or make sure that he knows that you feel safe with him. But he also has to be able to feel safe with you when he shares some of his feelings with you.
That's actually a great conversation that we should organize. Is how could we help each other? Because we gotta make sure that we know that it's not a one-sided street. Because women go through things just as well as men go through. So how can we be there to benefit each other, to work as a tandem? Well,
and I think that as a man, and me personally, I will always, I think, and some people, you all feel free to disagree with me or agree. It might be my toxic trait is I will always put other people's problems ahead of mine. That's just who I am. Especially people that I care about.
It speaks to your character.
It might, but that's just who I am.
Yeah,
I will put other people's problems ahead of mine. But it is good to know that when it's time to come back and address my problems, that those same people that I was putting before myself are still going to be there for me. That's powerful.
I was going to say that's a balance.
We got to lift each other up.
Yeah.
As men, so in a friendship standpoint, as men, we have to lift each other up. But in a relationship standpoint, that's still our job, is to lift each other up.
Yeah.
It's not one-sided.
Yeah, but if a friendship and a relationship, the key word in it is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's relationships that you have with people. And you get, and I always bring up John, you get different experiences from different people. And you can get, not even experiences, you can get different things out of different people. So one friend, you can have the conversation. We go back to, you can have the conversation of advice. I can go to you for advice, or you can have that friend or that person that you go to just to listen, to vent, or you get that person that gives you the kick in the ass when you need it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes advice is good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to vent, but sometimes you also need somebody to get in your face and get in your ass and let you know, hey man, you can do better and you should be doing better. In so many words, your own personal hype man.
Right. Now, so think about this, and one more thing to think about and to leave everybody to think about. So we talk about strength, right? And men being strong, right? What's stronger than one person? Two people. Right? So whether we're talking about raising kids, whether we're talking about relationships, all that, nobody is as strong by themselves as they are as a group. So like when we come to talk about kids, right, we say it takes a village. as an adage as old as time, right? I think it's the same thing in a relationship. So if you want your man to feel strong, you have to empower him by letting him know that it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yep.
Right? If you want a man that feels like he can conquer anything in this world, put a good woman behind him that encourages him. You see what I'm saying?
That is true.
That will lift him up and tell him, I'm here to lift you up in your moments of weakness, the same as you're here to lift me up in mine. See what I'm saying? It's that partnership. It's that teamwork. And that's not just relationships, and that's not just friendships. That can be family in general.
True.
So my sister Nina that's watching right now, I had a fucking 2.5 hour long conversation with her. She's way out in middle of BFE, Wyoming, like in the middle of some cow field somewhere. But that conversation that me and her had was healing to me in so many ways, man, because even with all that distance between us, it's been, I haven't seen her since my little brother's wedding back in October. But to be able to sit back and have that conversation with her and her to still understand how I feel and also give me an outlet to vent to was healing in so many ways to me. And I think every man needs that. It's not just in a relationship with a woman. It's, as men, we need that positive reinforcement, whether it's from your sister, your mom, your auntie, just a female friend in general. Because like I said, and I've said this multiple times tonight, men, we're protectors and providers. We don't want to demasculinate ourselves. We don't want to be viewed as weak. But it's okay to have moments of weakness. You just have to have somebody there to lift you back up and remind you how strong you are, and to help you through those moments.
I want to say this before we get off here, because we're going to have to come to a close. We talk about it not being masculine or a sign of weakness when we open it up, but it's key to understand that that's actually a sign of strength.
Yeah.
Showing that you got too much going on and you can't handle it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sign of strength to go out here and say, I need assistance, to be man enough to say, hey, I need help, and to look for help. That takes a sign of strength and sign of manhood. Because I always talk about no one does it on their own. I do an interview series where I interview black business owners, call it Black Excellence. I always end it with, who helps you get there? Because no one does it by themselves.
Why you never had me on this show? I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. So let me, and I just as a reply to that. So, would you rather? And this isn't just a question for you. This is a question to everybody listening. You have to ask yourself: would you rather fail on your own, or ask for help and make it?
If I'm answering that question personally, for the longest time I was stubborn, and I would rather fail on my own. And if you talk to my family, they would still tell you that I'm stubborn, and I would rather fail on my own. But as I've grown older, and as I'm maturing, because it also takes a level of maturing to show that you need help, I'm understanding that it's okay to ask people for help. It's also okay to accept help.
Well, and I
think that's another thing that we don't do.
That shows a part. That shows maturity, and it also contributes to our growth and development for us to learn that it's okay when we can't do everything on our own. When we do have to ask for help every now and then. You know, I would rather, at this point in my life, I would rather swallow my pride, and that's a big thing amongst men, is pride. One of the reasons is we suppress all this pain that we feel sometimes, all this stress that we feel, and we try and mask it and hide it.
Yeah.
Right? Because because we don't want to ask for help, because we don't want to be viewed as weak. We want to be able to do everything on our own. And that's kind of a toxic trait in itself, but it's very common amongst strong-minded men. I've been there, you've been there. But a part of my growth personally has been the fact that I've realized that it's okay to take a step back and say, before I lose everything, I'm going to ask for help. And I was talking about this in a sense of the workplace. Here more recently, I said self-accountability. It's a show of maturity and growth when you make a mistake and you can hold yourself accountable and say, I fucked up. I made a mistake. I'm going to take that and I'm going to learn from it. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether it's work, whether it's life, whatever. To understand, well, I made a mistake, I'm going to take it, I'm going to learn from it, I hold myself accountable. To then say, or on the opposite side, you can say, I wasn't wrong. And sit there and keep arguing your point of view over and over to anybody to listen to it until you finally find somebody that agrees with you to justify your bad judgment.
You don't want to accept the accountability or the reality is you're wrong. A lot of people don't want to admit they're wrong. But we're gonna put a pin in it there. We should definitely come back and talk about accountability. So that's a subject in and of itself.
Well, and I just brought that up because I feel like that still applies to the topic that we've touched on tonight. So much is that we have to hold ourselves accountable and say, I need help. Yeah. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I need some help. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to get that right help. Rather, if I don't, I'm going to lose it all. The opposite is just, to me, failure is not an option. And if success means that I've got to reach out and ask for a little help every now and then, that's what I'm going to do. But Q, I appreciate you having me on tonight. I appreciate this podcast, bro, in general. It's been a pleasure being back on with you and joining back on with the Mixed Vibes Media family. And we definitely got to do this again in the future, and we can touch some more on these topics because, unfortunately, this is such a deep topic, guys, that sitting here for a 30 to 60 minute show, just we're barely scratching the surface right now. So
the conversation was great. Like I said, Wes, I appreciate you doing the pod.
As always, brother, I appreciate you having me on. So
next time we'll talk about the logo. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, your show, do what you please, bro.
Hey, it's how it be. But hey, man, appreciate y'all for listening to Hold Up in Another Thing, presented by Mixed Vibes Media. You already know who it is. It's your boy, Mr. Bell, aka Captain Hater. But I'm gonna catch y'all next week.